Hello, Education 2220 students. I hope everyone is having a great Labor Day weekend. I just wanted to jump on here and kind of walk you through what we're going to be working on this week. So, we're going to start out this course with Module 1 Historical and Legal Foundations of Special Education. So, this one really is just going to explore the evolution of special education. So, we're going to look at any key court cases and milestones in special education, examining the historical context. We're also going to be learning about legislation, some major laws and policies that really shape the field. So, these are going to be things like ADA, IDEA, and Section 504. So really, you're going to get background knowledge not only the legal frameworks that influence our practices today, but also we're going to be learning about um, the practices that are going to be put in place to support students in inclusive environments for those who have exceptionalities. So, the way that the course is laid out, hopefully you've had a chance to get in here and kind of look around and you have accessed your textbook through Follow Access. If you're still having trouble with that, please reach out to me. I know that in one of my course sections, we pretty much got the textbook squared away. So if you are still having trouble or you can't figure it out, just reach out and I'll be glad to help you because we will be using our textbook this first week. So I have it laid out the same for each module. So what you're going to be doing is you will see you have your overview and outcomes, any keywords and concepts related to that module, and then you're going to have standards. So when we're looking at the standards, and I'll click on each one in a minute, um, when you click on the standards, we're talking about Council for Exceptional Children standards, and we're also looking at any division of exceptional children standards, as well as teacher preparation standards, or we like to call in-task standards. Then you have a section under that is named reading and resources. So this is going to tell you, okay, what is my required reading? Maybe it's reading from your textbook. Maybe it's reading from the special education framework. Maybe it's reading some articles. Um, so there's different things that we're going to be required to read. So you will have that. Then you will have links that follow. So sometimes this may be a Nearpod presentation, sometimes this may be a PowerPoint with information you need to know that's outside of your chapter. Then you'll have your chapter PowerPoint slides. Again, this is the publishers, so the textbook slides. Then you may have some videos listed, some links, some brochures. There's lots of resources here. So that's where you're going to find all of the things that you need to do as far as supporting you. Then the last box you're going to see is going to be your activities and assessments. So these are going to be things that's going to grade you, like they're going to ask you to do something. So that's going to be your module quizzes, your assignments to turn in. If there's a discussion board, it will be listed in here. Also study tools. So if you see here, it has a service learning application, which is very important because that is due September 4th, which is Thursday. Now, I know in our course, all of our assignments are normally due on the 7th. Sometimes there will be things that are going to be due on Thursday, and that will be your service learning materials. So the first order of business as far as things you have to submit to your teams is going to be your service learning application. Now, remember, anything as far as documents or paperwork does not get put in our class. You will submit those to your teams. You were supposed to join that teams. All of this information was in the overview video, so if you're kind of lost and you don't know what I'm talking about, please reach out and I'll be glad to help you. But at this point, you should have already went through and looked at the service learning manual and looked through the entire service learning module because all this information as well as the overview video is in there for you. You do need to complete your application. That's just stating where you want to go, what classroom, what county district, so we can get that process of trying to figure out where we're going to get you placed. Your assignment, I will go over in a minute. You will be submitting a timeline and reflection on special education law. And again, this is going to go back to our objectives for this module. An example of what a timeline would look like. Then you have some study tools here. So I gave you 6 principles of IDEA review note sheet. I gave you some review games. which are going to help you with Module 1 quiz, and then you have your link to Module 1 quiz there. So that's pretty much the layout. So I wanted to go through and look real quick at each section. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is something I want you to go through, but I just wanted you to familiarize yourself with the layout and how I want you to go through these pieces of information in the module. So you'll see you have an overview, which was what I read to you earlier. Underneath that will be our course outcomes. These are things that we're going to accomplish through this module. Also, these course outcomes are listed in our syllabus. So these are things that you should know how to do and master when you leave the course at the end of the semester. And then our learning objectives. These are objectives specifically related to our module 1, right? So we're going to identify various types of learners in today's classroom. We're going to identify the core principles of IDA, describing placement options, describe the role of courts in special education, and then explain the effects of educational reform, right? So we're looking at all those pieces and it's going to help us meet these course outcomes here. Then we're looking at keywords and concepts. These are the most specific things that I want us to really focus on for Module 1. Again, I broke it up into sections to make it a little easier. We're going to be exploring legal foundations like IDEA, what's Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, what is American with Disabilities Act and the amendments, what is the civil rights legislation, and then any key judicial decisions that really shape special education law. Then we have just some terminology. What do these words mean? Like exceptional children, disability versus handicap, categories and labels, prevalence and identification. Then we have service delivery and placement. So this is things like least restrictive environment, service delivery teams, and what cascade of service delivery options. And then any contemporary issues is things that we face today in our classrooms. So these are some terms that we will see in our chapter 1 textbook, chapter 1 of our textbook. So here again are the standards I talked to you about. We're listing standards for Council for Exceptional Children as well as in-task standards. Then our reading and resources section. So this is what you're going to be required to read and be responsible for. So you are going to be reading in your textbook, which is the Teaching in Today's Inclusive Classrooms. You will read chapter 1. And then you will also, and again, this is in your resources, but I also included the link. I explained to you in the resources section that you may have to read other supplemental resources to make sure we're meeting the outcomes that we have listed in our course. So there is a guide that's called a Teacher's Guide to Special Education. It's like a small book. It's free for you to download. You're going to be reading chapter 1 in that, and that is going to kind of supplement and give you a little bit more information as far as chapter 1 in our Teaching Inclusive Classrooms is. So make sure that you read that. Then I have a video here for you talking about inclusive learning environments, so I want you to watch that. Here are your chapter 1 slides that accompany your textbook. Okay. Here is an outline. You could use this as a study tool or you can create your own. This is something the publishing company sent. I always just like to include it. I would find some way to take notes as you're reading and as you're going through this module. This may not be the best way for you, but if this is something that you want to use, you're welcome, or create some way to do notes as you're going through the module. This is quite a large and really in-depth PowerPoint, but I felt it was important to include it because of those course outcomes and because there's so much information covered. I wanted this as a supplement for you for chapter 1, where we start talking about case law, right? And which ones really helped shape special education, but also how did we get started, right? So, what was the evolution or the history behind special education or education in the US? So, I went ahead and included that because I felt like it was very important. The next thing you're going to be looking at are some videos. Don't mind that. I'll go ahead and fix that link for you. But you will be watching a video about IDA 40 years later, and then Dr. Samuel Measles on IDA. If you I haven't also included a transcript, so if you're more of a read-write person, you may just not want to watch the video. I included a transcript for you as well. I included a link which I thought was helpful. This is for Tennessee Early Intervention System, or TEIS, and this is really just a guide, something helpful for you. It talks about IFSPs, which are individualized family service plans, as well as TEIS and what it is and how it helps parents. And then, actually, on the next part of the pamphlet, really starts breaking down the steps. As you're traveling through TEIS system, what would this look like? Which I found very helpful. So I put that in there so you can save and download that as an optional resource for yourself. Again, there's the citations, and this is something neat I listed in there. It's just a little discussion board. So if you ever have questions specifically related to this module, and I've got one for each module, go ahead and put it on there. Classmates are welcome to answer questions if I don't get back to you. I usually check these about every couple days. So if it's something pressing, you may just want to email me, but you're welcome to, or if you want to share a resource about something that we're talking about, this is a good place to put this. So it's not only about questions, it's about any ideas or conversations. So it's basically like an open discussion topic for this specific module. So I put that there as well. Now, a reminder, your service learning application needs to be submitted to the teams. So if you haven't joined the Service Learning Fall 2025 teams, you need to do that because that's where all of your documentation will go. Now, I wanted to take a minute and look at your assignment. So on your assignment, because we're talking about the evolution of special education and talking about special education law specifically in chapter 1, I thought it would be good for you to be able to create a timeline. So what you're going to do is you're going to research and create a visual written timeline. Now, when I say research, of course, you're using the textbook, number one, and then you can even go further and research these on your own. But what we're looking at with this timeline is we're going to look at the 5 major milestones in the history of special education, right? And there's 2 ways you can do this. You can create a written one, which goes down linear, where you just list them, or you can create a visual. And I do have an example of visual one in the course. But when we're talking about timelines, we're going to look at the significance and provide brief descriptions for each, right? So this could be a digital or a drawn one. If you use a hand-drawn timeline, obviously you need to take a picture of it. So make sure that when you upload it, it uploads it correctly when you submit it. But when I'm looking at criteria of what I want in the timeline, I want you to look at landmark legislation like IDEA, ADA, Section 504. List those key court cases like Brown versus Board of Education, Park versus Pennsylvania. Any shifts in educational policy or philosophy should also be included. So that will be the first part of this assignment. Anytime we're doing assignments like this, we also do what we call reflective analysis. So what I want you to do is you're going to create a short reflection. So this could be 1 to 2 pages, and you're going to address, right, these milestones that you created in your timeline. So how have these historical and legal developments shaped inclusive education today? How do the principles of IDA influence classroom practice? So we're looking at uh, FAPE, LRE, IEP, all of those things. And remember, these are all listed in Module 1. So we're learning what these terms are. We're learning about the principles of IDA. So what are those? So the next thing you have to answer and really reflect on is why understanding these foundations is essential for you as a future educator. Okay. And then underneath that, it just shows you how this assignment aligns with our learning objectives for this module, and then also your alignment with our course outcomes. So just make sure that you look at that. There is a rubric. So this link here, when you click on it, it's going to show you a rubric of how you're going to be graded. So the 3 criteria I look at for this assignment, it's worth 10 points, is I'm going to look at your accuracy and relevance of the timeline, your reflection depth, which is the writing piece, and then if it's organized and it makes sense. So your organization and clarity. And the points are broken down into exceeds, meets, or needs improvement. So that's basically that criterion score for this assignment. And then I showed you, or I spoke to you about having an example. So I did create a little an example of a small timeline, a visual one. It does have some brief descriptions in there. Obviously, you still need to follow the assignment instructions and expectations, but this is just to give you an idea of what a visual timeline would look like if that's what you decided to do. Now, underneath our timeline, I did have a study tool in here for you. So in our textbook chapter 1, we talk about IDA and the 6 principles of IDA. I did give you a note sheet that's going to help you review those because this is something you might see on Module 1 test or our midterm exam. So that's just an effective study tool for you. I did provide you with review games, and then, of course, you will take your Module 1 quiz. Now there's a link to it. So remember, your Module 1 quiz you can take as many times as you'd like during that window that it's open, but after that it closes. That's it. So it will start and open on September the 1st and it will close on September 7th. I will say I would not begin the quiz until I felt prepared and went through the resources, read the chapter, even practiced and was working on my assignment before I was wanting to do the quiz, right? Um, and just use these activity and review games as a way to kind of test yourself on everything that you're learning in the module. Okay, so this first module is heavy. It has a lot of case law in it, a lot of legislation, so there's a lot of terminology, so just keep that in mind. But use these resources to help you and guide you. Also, if you have questions about the service learning, please reach out because if we drag our feet on this, it's going to take a while to get you placed, and we don't want that. The other thing I want you to be working on this coming week is getting your liability insurance purchased, STA or Aon. And then I also want you to get your background checks. If you already had one or you are employed with the school system, you need to check with me. That way we can kind of see where you're at. All right. I hope you have a great week. Until next time, take care.